Hello everyone, we're back here and we're going to talk about camera stuffs. Today we're especially going to talk about something that we have been talking a little bit about before on the channel, which is using vintage lenses on newer and more modern cameras, especially on mirrorless cameras. And previously, when I made a video about this, I used a full frame camera, Panasonic S5. The principle, however, is more or less the same on all cameras that doesn't have a mirror, and it doesn't matter if you have an APS-C size sensor or full frame sensor. However, this video is going to be a little bit more focused on the APS-C sensor size and especially on the Fujifilm system. However, the mount on the camera could be anything. The same principle still applies to your camera, and I think the way I set this up for using vintage lenses is a pretty solid system. Today we're going to dive slightly more deeper into it. So first of all, you have a camera brand and you need an adapter of some sort. There is 3 different kinds of adapters you could get. First of all, the most simple one is a dead adapter. There's no electronic signal going from between this adapter and your camera. This one is mainly for lenses that are fully manual. The other road to go down is a so-called focal reducer, and what that means is that there's an adapter which contains some glass elements into it. This is something you want especially on an APS-C sensor camera, because this is reducing the focal length. So let's say you have a 50mm lens, something like this. This adapter, which reducing the focal length, should give you the same field of view as you would get if you put this on a full frame sensor camera. And we're gonna do some tests about that later in this video. If that's what's interesting you, there's gonna be markers. There's gonna be chapter marks that you could jump over there. The third kind of adapter, which I doesn't have here, is to use lenses that are, for example, that have electronic in it. What that means is that there's no ring where you could adjust the aperture and stuff like that. It means you need to control it by the camera. The easiest way to see if you have that kind of lens is simply to look on the back on the lens, and you're gonna see there's some electrical contacts on the lens. And there is both focal reducers that works together with these kinds of lenses, and there's adapters without focal reducers that also works with these kinds of lenses. When it comes to my system that I have acquired here in order to adapt lenses to my Fujifilm X Pro 3, I have walked down 2 paths here. First of all is an adapter that goes from the Fuji X mount to Canon EF. And the EF system is a pretty nice system to adapting lenses to, because once you have an EF mount, you could buy plenty of rings that looks like this. And this one, for example, it goes from Konica Yashica. And here's another one that goes to a simple M42. And over here I have a classical Pentax K, and if we remove the back door, we see that this one is adapted to a Canon EF. That would mean that it would fit directly on, for example, something like an EOS 5D, almost like it's a native lens. What makes the EOS system or the EF system pretty good is because the flange distance is slightly shorter for being a DSLR camera. And what I mean with the DSLR camera is a camera that has this mirror inside it. If your camera doesn't have the mirror inside here that folds up, it means it's a mirrorless camera. And the reason why it's so easy to adapt things to a mirrorless camera is just because the mirror is missing, which means that the distance between the sensor and the lenses are generally much shorter. So all you need to do in order to adapt an older lenses that were made for something with a mirror is to get the right distance. And once you have the right distance, you could simply put on all those old school lenses. Pretty neat. So from the Canon system, you could go to many different systems. So that's a good way to start. For example, if you're going to get something with a focal reducer, I would highly recommend you to perhaps get a Canon EF. Because from EF you could go to Konica Yashica, you could go to Pentax K, there's the M42, and there's also a simple way to go, for example, an M39 to an M42, which is to buy this little ring which simply just adjust the threads. Because the M39, as this one is, has a 39mm ring on it, and you simply screw on this adapting ring here, and now it is an M42. Extremely simple, and it works pretty. The best way to find adapters like this is to look on sites like Amazon, eBay, local camera stores on the web. I've been using many adapters that come from a company called Canon EF Concepts. They have nothing to do with this video, but I just find out that their adapters are pretty well built and they are also pretty well priced. I have another adapter here called zhongyi, and this one is the adapter that has the focal reducer. I got this one pretty cheap, so that's a reason why I have it. This Canon FD focal reducer adapter is pretty neat because it comes with this ring which adapts to an M42. So what I do is that I slam on this adapter on the focal reducer, and now I could use M42 lenses and just screw them on, and I got all that focal reducing niceness that this one gives. We're not done talking about focal reducers because there is a lot of things to consider when it comes to focal reducers. Some people say that you can expect getting a sharper image, and I'm pretty sure that might apply for some focal reducers, but it doesn't apply for all of them, and it doesn't apply for this one. I've done some tests which shows one picture here on the left side and one picture on the right side. And you could clearly see that the picture on the left, which is with the booster, it's not as sharp as it is without the booster. However, it reduced the focal length, so your 50mm lens becomes slightly more of a 50mm lens when it comes to the field of view. You could say it's removed some of the crop that your smaller sensor adds. However, it doesn't compare to how it would look if you take a 50mm and put it on full frame. I also did test on that, and here's the difference. And as you can see on the picture of the left, there is a slightly more narrow field of view on the focal reducer compared to the full frame sensor on the right. However, it gives back some of that, and in many cases it's pretty sharp in the middle. However, there's more to wish for when it comes to the edges, and as so many other lenses and stuffs when it comes to optics, it cleans up when you're increasing the aperture. For example, on an aperture 4, the differences are less noticeable, but there is still a noticeable difference between using this specific focal reducer compared to using just this lens without the focal reducer. However, it might be different for other focal reducers. There's also another thing that are pretty nice with focal reducers, and they are concentrating the light, which means that your 1.4 lens kind of turns into a 1.2 or something like that. It lets more light into the camera, so it makes your lens more light sensitive. However, it doesn't gives you more bokeh. It's only let more light into your sensor. The question that pops up then is, why would you want to use vintage lenses on a modern camera? There's plenty of nicer lenses. And well, yes, there is plenty of nice lenses, but there's also a lot of nice vintage lenses. What vintage lenses generally gives you is a lot of character, as we would say. It means that there's a certain feel on it. You could easily, for example, distinguish the difference between this one, which is a Helios 44, and a Super Takumar. This one is a 56mm, and this one is a 58, and this one is a 55. Besides the difference in fields of view, there's a massive difference on it. This one has a swirly bokeh in some situations. This one have radioactive glasses and are tinting a little bit more towards the yellow side. So it's because of all this character that you might want to pick up a vintage lenses. A vintage lens could be a way for you to get a specific look on your image. The character some of these lenses gives you, that's nothing you can find in modern lenses or nor create in post afterwards. If you have questions about vintage lenses or camera stuffs in general, post those questions in your comments, and I'm gonna answering them either in comment or even in a video format. Thanks for watching, and if you like my content, consider subscribing. That means a lot for me. And also, if you like this video, consider giving it a thumbs up. Thanks for watching, and lately there's gonna be a playlist and a subscribe button here. Thanks for watching. Take care. I see you later.